Welcome back, Darklings. Before we dive into the shadows of Peter Pumpkin Eater, let's first take a moment to revisit the most popular version of this nursery rhyme. Peter, Pumpkin Eater. Had a wife but couldn't keep her. He put her in a pumpkin shell, and there he kept her very well. Peter, Pumpkin Eater. Had another and didn't love her. Peter learned to read and spell, and then he loved her very well. Speculation swirls around the origins of this seemingly American nursery rhyme. The presence of pumpkins, not native to England, raises questions, yet the story may not be as straightforward as it appears. It is often suggested that the earliest printed reference can be traced back to London in 1797. This is found within a satirical book titled Infant Institutes, a playful commentary on nursery rhymes, in contrast to the more common critiques of Shakespeare's works. Surprisingly, the term Peter Pumpkin appears only once in this book, tucked away in the appendix. In this instance, the author mentions Mary quite contrary in her garden, casually remarking that she must have a Peter Pumpkin to assist her. The connection between this mention and the Peter Pumpkin nursery rhyme remains unclear. Determining the exact birth date of a nursery rhyme often proves to be a challenging endeavour. These rhymes are rooted in an oral tradition that predates the written word, reaching back to a time when literacy was a rare privilege, and many old books have been lost over the years. What is certain, however, is its inclusion in the publication Mother Goose's Quarto, or Melodies Complete, in Boston, Massachusetts, in 1825, marking the first documented printed version that we are aware of. Interestingly, the term pumpkin had emerged as slang during the late 18th century, being used to describe a native of Boston, Massachusetts, which intriguingly aligns with the place of its apparent first publication. There are countless online speculations around the mysterious figure of Peter Pumpkin Eater. There is an interpretation that the phrase couldn't keep her hints at an adulterous wife or one who has resorted to a life of prostitution. The mention of a pumpkin shell, in which Peter confines his wife, has been seen as a symbol of a chastity belt. Others delve into the darkest corners of imagination, casting Peter as a sinister murderer, his wife's life tragically extinguished and her body gruesomely concealed within a pumpkin shell or buried beneath the shadow of a pumpkin patch. There has never been any concrete evidence that this was the original intent of the rhyme. However, there is an alternative version, published in England around the same time, with very similar lyrics. Eeper Weeper, chimney sweeper, had a wife, but couldn't keep her. Had another, didn't love her. Up the chimney he did shove her. This rhyme adds another layer of intrigue to the puzzle, with some suggesting that in this alternate version of the tale, the murder victim's remains find an eerie refuge within a chimney. However, a more practical interpretation might be that the chimney sweep has a wife whom he coerces into labour by sending her up the chimney to sweep it. But in reality, master sweeps typically had young boy apprentices rather than wives to assist them. Chimney sweeping during that era was undeniably one of the most difficult, hazardous, and low-paying occupations. Shockingly, boys as young as 4 years old were tasked with ascending hot and treacherously narrow flues, sometimes measuring just 9 by 9 inches or 23 centimetres. The master sweep himself couldn't fit into these confined spaces, so he enlisted the help of these young climbing boys to navigate the chimneys and dislodge the soot. The work was rife with danger as they risked getting trapped in the flue. Some remained stranded for hours. While luckier individuals could be rescued, those less fortunate would suffocate and perish inside the chimney, necessitating the removal of bricks to retrieve the body. So the presence of children's bodies within chimneys was, sadly, not an unusual occurrence. However, there is no historical record to suggest that a chimney sweep's wife was ever concealed within a chimney. But there is one more rhyme, hailing from Aberdeen, Scotland, that seems to hold the key to this puzzle. It can be found in the book Aberdeen and its Folk, and has been recognised by scholars for its cultural significance. In a chapter dedicated to childhood, the author recounts the story of his governess, a devoted collector of ballads and nursery rhymes, with a deep passion for imparting them. She described this particular rhyme as ancient, passed down through generations.
Peter, my Neeper, had a wife and he couldna keep her. He put her in the wa and let a' the mice eat her.
For those less familiar with the Scottish dialect, it reads, Peter, my neighbour, had a wife, and he couldn't keep her. He put her in the wall, and let all the mice eat her. This rhyme is thought to be the grandparent of both Peter Pumpkin Eater and Eeper Weeper Chimney Sweeper, and undeniably alludes to immurement, a chilling practice involving the entombment of an individual within a wall. Immurement features in various historical practices, serving as both an excruciatingly slow death penalty or a method of temporary punishment. A harrowing example is James Hepburn, the third husband of Mary, Queen of Scots, accused of treason. Captured in Denmark, he endured captivity beneath Dragsholm Castle, confined in a space too small to stand, sustained by meagre food scraps passed through a tiny opening. After 5 years in this grim incarceration, his release found him behaving like a feral creature, devoid of language and reduced to grunting and aimless pacing. His death followed shortly after. Yet, not all cases of immurement involved reluctant participants. Some Christian monks and nuns willingly embraced it as a profound spiritual experience. They had the autonomy to select the method, duration, and location of their immurement. Remarkably, some devout women, such as Julian of Norwich, voluntarily opted to be bricked in for extended periods with young children under the age of 10 as their companions. These children, often offered as gifts by their parents to the church, symbolized innocence and purity. Together, the nun and her youthful companion would receive sustenance through a slender slit in the bricked-up wall. Immurement serves as the method of choice for murder in Oscar Wilde's The Canterville Ghost, and Edgar Allan Poe employed it notably in The Cask of Amontillado. However, tracing actual historical instances of immurement as a murder method is challenging. While uncovering the origins of any real-life murders that might have inspired this rhyme proves elusive, a compelling historical event is believed to have left its mark on its creation. In the turbulent year of 1208, a chilling rift tore through the bonds of friendship, as William de Braose found himself in a bitter feud with his once loyal patron, the formidable King John. The exact cause of their discord remains shrouded in mystery, but at its core lay a hefty debt, 5,000 marks owed to the king by de Braose. In a daring act of defiance, King John demanded that Maud, de Braose's wife, surrender their son William as a hostage to secure her husband's wavering loyalty. Maud, a woman of unyielding spirit, resolutely refused, her voice ringing with an audacious declaration heard by the king's officers. She, the brave lady of the moment, proclaimed that she would never entrust her children to a monarch whose own hands were stained with the blood of his nephew, an heir to the throne who had mysteriously vanished, but it was suspected that King John had orchestrated his nephew's murder to seize the crown for himself. Realizing the grave implications of her words, Maud sought to make amends, offering Queen Isabella a herd of 400 cattle in a desperate bid to mend the rift. But the king's wrath was an unquenchable fire, and he swiftly mobilized his troops, leading a relentless campaign to the Welsh border. In his ruthless pursuit, he seized all the castles that once stood under William de Braose's dominion. With their world crumbling around them, Maud and her eldest son William found themselves fugitives, their only sanctuary in the distant land of Ireland, at the protective embrace of Trim Castle, among the noble de Lacy family of her daughter Margaret. Yet King John's thirst for vengeance knew no bounds. In the fateful year of 1210, he dispatched a relentless expedition to Ireland, closing in on Maud and her son. The pair embarked on a daring escape, but their desperate voyage was cut short on the treacherous Antrim coast, where they were apprehended while striving to sail to the sanctuary of Scotland. Initially confined within the grim confines of Windsor Castle, the mother and son soon found themselves in a far darker abyss, the foreboding dungeons of Corfe Castle in Dorset. Within those cold, unforgiving walls, they were sealed inside a suffocating chamber to starve to death, a tomb of despair. 11 agonizing days passed before death came. Hunger gnawed at their bodies, and in the abyss of desperation, the unthinkable occurred. A macabre legend, whispered in hushed tones, told of Maud's harrowing act in her final moments, where despair drove her to consume the flesh from her own son's cheeks. The tragic manner in which Maud and William met their gruesome ends sent shockwaves through the country, casting a long shadow over these eventful times. So profound was the outrage that it would eventually become a pivotal catalyst in shaping the course of history. In the year 1215, King John was forced to set his seal upon the enduring parchment of the Magna Carta. Among its provisions, etched in Clause 39, resided a solemn declaration: "No man shall be taken, imprisoned, outlawed, banished, or in any way destroyed, nor will we proceed against or prosecute him, except by the lawful judgment of his peers, or by the law of the land. This historic document, born from the ordeals of a dark era, stood as a resolute guardian of the rights and freedoms of all, a testament to the enduring legacy of Maud and William's harrowing sacrifice. The Magna Carta, echoing through the corridors of time, etched a profound chapter in the records of liberty, forever safeguarding the principles of justice and equity. The inclusion of the name Peter in the rhyme holds a curious significance. In the world of nursery rhymes, Peter is often linked to St. Peter. This connection can be observed in other rhymes, such as two little dicky birds sitting on a wall, one named Peter, one named Paul, which is a nod to the apostles Peter and Paul. Peter carries a deep association with Catholicism because in their faith, St. Peter holds the esteemed position of being the very first pope. Viewed from this perspective, it's possible the rhyme is posing the question, what good Catholic would do such a thing, my neighbour? The neighbour representing King John or England in general. It's also important to mention that in Scotland at the time, the term wife was often used interchangeably to address any woman. It served as a common way of referring to females. But there exists a different type of immurement that perhaps the rhyme is referring to. In the pages of history, a remarkable group of individuals known as Anchorites emerges. These were not ordinary souls, they were volunteers who made an extraordinary choice to be encased within the very walls of churches, where they would spend the entirety of their lives. What motivated them was a profound, unwavering religious faith that led them on an extraordinary journey of spiritual intensity, shaping their existence around prayer and rigorous self-discipline. Both women and men who chose this path initiated their anchoritic life through a ceremony, presided over by a priest, that bore a striking resemblance to a funeral. Following this solemn rite, they were considered living saints, having effectively detached themselves from the realm of the ordinary living world. Texts described Anchorites as belonging to the order of the dead, and their commitment was irreversible. From the 12th to the 16th centuries, women who chose the anchoritic life significantly outnumbered their male counterparts, sometimes by as much as 4-1. In an era where marriage and motherhood were the societal norms, the anchoritic life offered a radically different path. It provided a sanctuary, a roof over one's head, nourishment, and ample time for contemplation. This unique choice also brought a special kind of recognition and respect. This path was open to women from all walks of life. Anyone could write to the Pope and seek to become an anchoress. Many of the Anchorites were from poor backgrounds, often lacking formal education. Some were driven by a deep desire for repentance. Several were former prostitutes. The Church utilised anchorholds as a means to redirect them from a life of lust. For others, the choice to become an anchoress arose from a lack of other opportunities. In medieval times, women without dowries couldn't marry or even join a religious community. Additionally, some were widows or abandoned wives who found solace in the anchoritic life. Within the confines of their small, solitary rooms, Anchorites embarked on their unique life journey. These rooms typically boasted 3 unassuming windows, each serving a distinct purpose. One allowed them to gaze upon the church's altar, hear Mass, and partake in the sacred Eucharist, and was known as a squint. It was through this aperture that these devout souls offered spiritual guidance and counsel to those who sought their wisdom, earning them a reputation for great insight. Another window looking into the church facilitated the exchange of sustenance and waste, providing a humble yet vital link to the world beyond. A third small window, while facing outside, was veiled with translucent fabric, allowing a gentle stream of light to filter into the rooms. Their lives were marked by strict fasting and unwavering devotion, which often led to profound spiritual experiences. Many Anchorites claim to have witnessed visions that transcended the bounds of the material world, adding an extra layer of mystique to their remarkable journey. The anchorhold was a place designed to test its occupants' resilience. The Anchorite, who severed ties with the world, was meant to endure suffering, akin to the Passion of Jesus, ultimately transcending it to attain holiness. Their cell was both a prison and a gateway to heaven. However, the reality often fell far short of this ideal. Some Anchorites couldn't adapt to this extreme way of life and faced a tragic fate. Historical accounts tell of instances where they descended into madness and, although prohibited by the Church, resorted to taking their own lives. A poignant 14th century poem from northwest France recounts the harrowing tale of an anchoress in Rouen. In her madness, she managed to escape through her small window and threw herself into the fiery oven of the adjacent bakery. It is the story of such an anchoress that may have inspired the enduring rhyme of Peter, my Neeper. Christine Carpenter, the anchoress of Cher, lived in the early 14th century. In 1329, she sought the Bishop of Winchester's permission to become an anchoress. Christine entered her solitary cell within the walls of St. James's Church, but 3 years later made a daring escape by squeezing through one of the narrow windows to the outside world. After her escape, it was written that Christine was seen to be gadding about the countryside, engaging with the dangers of sinful temptation, and in her wanderings presenting a ready prey for the devil. In doing so, she faced the grave spiritual peril of excommunication and the disappointment of all who had vouched for her character and integrity, giving rise to the verse about Peter, or her faith, that couldn't keep her. Months later, she beseeched the Pope for forgiveness and the chance to return. It was decided that Christine should be pardoned, but subjected to penance for her transgression. Her cell underwent a transformation. The external window was sealed entirely, and the remaining 2 which opened into the church were significantly reduced in size to prevent any further escape. Christine's fate beyond this point remains shrouded in mystery, as there is no record of her death. It is presumed that she spent the remainder of her days in the near-complete darkness of her chamber, a story both haunting and captivating. Another intriguing interpretation of the rhyme connects it to the Walled-Up Wife, a folkloric ballad with origins in Eastern European and Indian traditions. These ballads, often sung or recited, served as sources of entertainment from the medieval era to the 19th century, captivating audiences at alehouses and fairs. The narrative of the Walled-Up Wife revolves around the story of a construction project painstakingly erected each day, only to crumble each night. It's not until a mysterious spiritual being imparts a chilling directive to the master builder. To secure the structure's completion, a wife must be sacrificed through immurement. This haunting theme isn't confined to a single region, but resonates across diverse cultures, finding variations in countries far and wide. Could this nursery rhyme draw inspiration from, or be a fragment of, such a ballad? The Scottish connection runs deep in this tradition. Scottish ballads, known for their dramatic flair, immerse us in moments of intense conflict, featuring violence, themes of murder, supernatural encounters, and treacherous twists in love. These narratives are woven into the fabric of Scottish popular culture, lending further depth to the mystery of this chilling rhyme. Regardless of its origins, the transformation of Peter Pumpkin-Eater's wife, from immurement within a wall to being bricked into a chimney and then confined within a pumpkin, is a chilling glimpse into history. Which origin theory resonates with you the most? Or perhaps you have your own ideas? Feel free to leave a comment and share your thoughts. And if your thirst for nursery rhyme origins still lingers, don't forget to explore the rest of my channel. See you in a future video.